So this is Fmod. You've got your sound designer who has crafted all these like really complex, like well thought out sound effects. You've got your composer who's given you these awesome like rock and music tracks. Great. Now you got to get them into your game. And there's a few ways you can do this. You could just hook it up in Unity, just attach this MP3 WAV file to a Unity object and then set trigger, play one shot. You could do that. But if you want to have a bit more control, you want to have a bit more variety, you want to have all these cool like interactive elements, then we typically use a software, a middleware, such as Fmod. We had some questions earlier. Wise is another one. Yep, that's another kind of software. I think it's called Cryware. Elmer is another one as well. They use for like JRPGs a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, but I personally use Fmod. So like a DAW, like Logic or Pro Tools, whatever, there's like a bunch, but it basically gives you this visual interface with which to work. So I'm just going to very quickly just give you a little intro into how we lay stuff out. So you've got stuff called events, which is going to have all your audio files and stuff loaded in. I'll explain this in a moment. But of course, with Fmod, you can have all these wonderful folders that will help organize all the different categories of sounds that you're going to be getting from your sound design, so you know exactly where to place them. It makes organizing when you put them in Unity or Unreal Engine later in the game much easier. So we tend to keep different categories for user interface sounds or your SFX for the main character, the player. His sounds are in there as well as ambience. I'm going to start off with music first, just because it's fresh off from Elmer's delivery. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's say the player he's idle. He's exploring just the dungeon. So what I would typically do is we just want to have this music layer play. Yeah, so that's what I got from Elmer. And of course, like it's quite long. I could like shift around this loop region if I needed to, if I wanted to shorten it and just get this bit. But for now, let's stick with this nice 16-bar loop. So let's just boost it up by like 4 dB. So how does this sound? But I think it still needs a little. We'll just push it a little bit more. Maybe like a little bit louder. It's okay. So we have that. But so now we know this is when you're walking in the dungeon. But then when combat happens, then you want this to fade out, and you want the combat to come in. So the way we can do this is with automation based on parameters from the game. So how this basically works is in Unity, your programmer is going to give you certain triggers, like certain area zones that will send a trigger from Unity into Fmod, and these are called parameters. And this is what we use to tell the system how to like adjust these parameters. So let's just take the volume. Let's just give it some automation. So we want it to fade out. Yeah, let's give it a curve, and let's tie it to the combat parameter I've got set up. Now, so when combat is 1, so when combat is happening, we want all of this to fade out. So yeah, when it's 0, when it's idle, we want it on. When it's off, we want it off. And then we'll just give it a bit of a curve to smooth it out a bit. And of course, in Fmod, you can also do things like seek speed, which just controls how much it fades out when it's playing. So let's just give you a little demo here so you can see this little guy running. So let's play it just without combat. Now, give it a combat. And because it's all written to the same like BPM and 4-beat bar, it will fade through them very smoothly. Yeah, maybe that needs a bit of adjustment. Maybe we make it a bit tighter. That's also fine. Yeah. Let's assume combat is happening. We have our combat neutral layer, which is playing here. So you have that running, and now let's say, that's with the drums that are playing at the same time. But perhaps there's voiceover happening, so you have that voiceover. And now the drums are gone. So now that leaves a bit more space for any voiceover that's happening at the top. If we want to bring it back in, we can. Yeah, so you can affect things like that. Now let's say, for example, you're winning. So one of the ways we can do that is by measuring enemy health. And so in this case, I've got it set up so that enemy health. Yeah, when you're winning, it's going to, when the enemy is like below half health, then this music, this major chord key is going to switch in over that. So let's give that a try. As you can see it like shifting over. So what I've got over in the neutral, like this is going to fade out as soon as the enemy health is below a certain amount, and this is going to fade in at the exact same point. So yeah, those are some of the things that we can do. Of course, if you want to get like super into like, let's say the character players on low health, you want to have like a heartbeat kind of thing, you want to like make things super narrow, then we can also do that. So I've got like a little equalizer here. So if I set this up to play, happy, let's say the enemy's on full health, and then we want to drop the player down to like 20 HP. I believe it should be doing something. Oh, I set this HP quite low actually. Yeah, let's keep bringing it up to like 1 HP. So we can also do things with like EQ and like volume shaping and stuff like that to control like how the sound is also processed in the game. It's very interactive. So that's music. I'm now gonna go into SFX. So we've got all of our lovely categories of sound here. Let's start with ambience as a nice beginner. So of course you'd have folders separated into layers. We're gonna start with level 1. So this is the stuff I got from Darshan. Thank you very much. An excellent ambience. So let's just start with this basic castle ambience. Yeah, it's very echoey. There's a lot of dripping. But let's say you want to add some extra noises. So this is the thing. Well, this is what we can do in Fmod. I got these little individual like cling clangs. All kinds of fun metal sounds. But of course, this like 4 sounds isn't going to be enough if you're going to listen to it like for a long period of time. It's going to be the ambience. It's a whole dungeon you're playing for, let's say, hours. You've got to have some variety. And what we can do in implementation with these wonderful 4 sounds is now we can run them into something. So in Fmod, this is called a scatter instrument. Red screen, please move. Thank you. And we can do things like change the pitch variation. So what this will do is it'll randomize the pitch. It'll take each of the sounds we have, and so I can like pitch this whole thing up. Let's say I want to pitch it up 12 semitones. I can. I want to make it super low. I can also do that. So there's a lot of control we can have there. If you want to randomize it like cross or range, then this is the little meter that we can do for that. I want it actually quite varied a lot, and I want it to actually spawn a whole bunch of these instances. So what scatter instrument does is you have an event emitter. It's like maybe the middle of the character in the room. And this is going to spawn an instance of each of these 4 sounds, just randomly. So it's a random distance away from the player, which we can control with scatter distance over here. Let's set it to like 6. I want it to be close to the character. I want it to be spooky, him to hear all these things. And we can, of course, control like how often it spawns. Maybe I make it spawn actually quite often, maybe just like every second or so, between every 1 to, let's say 5 seconds-ish. Yeah, that'll do. And so now we run this. And we bring it in with the ambience. Yeah, maybe this I want to boost a bit stronger. We want to bring in some of the bat sounds that we have, which also goes through like a similar process of like fluttering. Sounds like that. Let's boost it a little bit stronger here. Yeah, and put everything together. And now you have all of these things, which is going to loop the wonderful ambience we got from Darshan. So this is important that this is loopable. And from like just these 6 sounds, I've suddenly got whole varieties like octave repitching, volume shaping, like randomized across. It will spatialize based on distance, on like how far you are from the character and the sound sources. So Fmod will just like handle all of this variation for you with all these little meters and things. So that's really handy. So yeah, so that's ambience. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the SFX that we're working with. Right, so you probably want to hear the main character. Let's hear his attacking sound. So Darshan designed this earlier, and he synced it to video to show us a demo. But what we would actually do in the game is we have this in Fmod, and it's going to play this. Yeah, so you have this while flashes. But of course, like just tree or so is not going to be enough variation. So what we can do is go ahead and go to our pitch setting here. We'll just let's just add some modulation. We'll call this a randomizer. Put in, and then we say, okay, I want it to go up to like 3 semitones higher and lower. And so let's go stream then. Say do that. So you can see it's like repitching wildly based on that. And so suddenly from tree sounds, I have like near infinite sounds of variation. You control this, of course, like by how much you want to create the variation, but it's this level of like, it's just different enough for the listener that they don't get bored. And that is the main thing. You don't want them to feel bored or too used to the sounds you're making. Variation with pitch and volume and even filtering is one of the ways we can do that in Fmod. Another thing to do with a lot of parameter controls is footsteps. So there's a few ways you could have implemented this, but let's say for our purposes, the guy in Unity, the programmer, has a footstep script. So it sends a trigger to Fmod every single time the character takes a step. So we have a... Those are all the many different footsteps that I've got from Darshan, and that's great. I would also then apply my wonderful pitch randomization over here. Not too much. Oh, it's a little slippery. Not too much. Just say 3 semitones, just enough to make it sound a bit different. But I want to preserve the metallic armor sound that he has, so that's fine. If, for example, you knew the game was not just happening in a dungeon, let's say you know what's going to happen like outside in the forest, or walking inside like a wooden village or something, then you might have different footstep sounds. We can just take this, bring it over, and copy it in. And so we'd have like similar other instruments that we could add for different surfaces, and you would record new sounds, basically like footsteps on dirt. So you take all these layers, maybe add a dirt layer as it like punches on gravel. You can use some dirt in your back of your garden if you want. If you want some gritty sounds, actually salt is not bad. Takes up the cheap thing also for to like your for leaf pit, you can record also again. Wood as well, especially if you have wooden floors, you get that nice creaking sound. So you can have all of these recorded into new sounds, and then now, based on parameter, it will play different sounds. So for example, at the moment there's no sounds coming in here. Oh yeah, let me just mute this momentarily. So yeah, based on the surface, we have the dirt parameter. So it's not going to play anything because we have no sounds. But then if you shift over to a different material, so you can, with this parameter, select what kind of surface you want the sound to be coming out on. Okay, so we have all these layers. Now let's take a look at some of the get hit sounds. This is when we're doing different types of layering, where we have, for example, just the wallas, just the... Where we'd also do things with pitch variation here. You can take a look there, got that. Not much, because it's the voice. But with this sound, this is when he gets it. Nice metallic sound, nice a bit of gore. So if we put that together, and so suddenly with just these two different multi-instruments, 3 sounds here, 4 sounds there, because they're going to be running in combination, suddenly you have like, I don't know, 50 different combinations, and that gives you a lot of variety. Most of Fmod with implementation is making sure things are balanced in the mix of the game and how they get triggered, and as well as making sure everything has some variety in them. That's the main thing. We take a look at the wall light. So this is one way that you could implement like that shield attack, the magic shield of light that comes on the ceiling. Yeah, so you have like these 2 stages of like appear and disappear, and it'll like do some combinations there, and that's fine. But let's say it's that ranged attack where he's like charging up like the powers, and then he shoots it, and then there is a variable amount of time before it explodes, because you can't sync that to a picture because it's a game. You don't know when his like a fireball or whatever is going to hit a skeleton or hit a wall or something. So what we can do is we have the build up here and the shoot over here. And then we can just have it like loop in Fmod on a nice silent bit until you're ready, until the game tells us that we want it to blow up. But of course it's very close, we can have it as it's just one smooth sound. So Fmod allows us with parameter controls to do these variable things. Alternatively, if you decide Unity, you actually just want to have a separate event. Like let's say you want me to duplicate this and just like delete all of that. Delete all of this. If you want to implement it as separate events, so this attack is just the attack and this one is just the impact, you could also do that if you wanted to. But if you want to have some parameter control, this is how you do it. The enemy sound it's actually the same sound that I'm using in the players getting hit here. But what I've done here is I've actually pitched it 3 semitones. I could go more extreme. Maybe the enemies are very big, and so I want to like just create this effect of weight. What I can do is pitch this whole thing down like 12 semitones, and then like, yeah, let's give it a multi-band compressor. Let's just boost this by like 5 dB, give it a real bass hit. Yeah, we probably want a supporting layer here if there's a bit of fidelity as we pitch it down. But this is an extreme example, but this is what you could do. Duncan's question much earlier about CPU RAM and how much sounds and variation, there's that trade-off, right? The more sounds you put in your game, the more like data, the file size is going to eat up into your RAM budget for the game, because your game in Unity or Unreal or whatever has got to like stream, it's got to run the whole video, the animation, the effects, all of that, and your sound. So usually on the sound end, you want to like optimize and streamline things as much as possible. Like, so if I have this sword impact here, we try to reuse sounds as much as possible and use things like EQ and pitch variation and stuff like that to make it sound different enough and to fit different characters. But in the terms of actual RAM, it's the same sound. It's still the sword impact here. It's still the sword impact here, but they sound very different already. Of course, I like buff it up more in a full project. But that lets you save a lot of RAM in your project, and that lets things just run smoother. I'm just going to lastly very quickly show something we can do with Reverb and stuff. So this is some of the UI sounds. We've got a nice button press here. I think this is for the start menu. It sounds pretty cool. But then we also have for the hover scenes. And now let's say, let me just bypass this for a moment. So the sounds I got from Darshan here, let me boost it up a bit. You know, they're all right, but they're very dry. They don't have much reverb. They don't tell much about the space that we're in. So what we can even do in Fmod is we can actually just add plugins such as reverb and other effects. Like there's a whole array of stuff here that we can work with. So if I wanted to do this, I just go in, I get a reverb. We know it's like, oh, it's a stone room, it's cave, kind of dungeon place. So I do that, adjust the thing a bit to be a bit drier, and now we have. Let's turn it a bit more. And so now you've got this space which you can control. One last thing I'd like to show you, so this has all been in the event editor, but there is other things that we can also do. So this is the mixer in the setup. And you'd have like all these different groups of where all the events that we had earlier, we actually route them into groups to keep things. So all the enemy sound, the main character sounds, the SFX streams into here. So with this little setup, you can control how much ambience you want to have. So actually with all of these things that come in pretty dry, I'm actually routing all of these to its own stone cave dungeon reverb that we can do inside the game. Because these all have to change based on space. Perhaps you're running into a corridor and you actually want to make the sound a lot more enclosed. Well, we can do that in snapshots where we've got different reverb zones for different places. So let's say I wanted the ambience reverb to instead sound like, instead of a stone room, I want it to be a stone corridor. Then we can also have that. So we're going to have the sound play through like that. I believe if I just do this, it should. But let's say I want it to sound like it's more of a cave. I could make it sound more like a hallway. Okay, not much changed there because it's a lot of reverb in the ambience. But this is the things that you can do. And so in addition to that, we have all these groups and some things that might happen. For example, if you have a lot of SFX that is going on, and you have your music that is playing at the same time, you actually want to duck some of that that's playing. So what I can do as I temporarily switch over, let's just play some music that's all together. And then let's also play some SFX. Yeah, so you can kind of see it running on the meters, but what I've actually got over here, if you go back to the mixing desk, is that when the music is playing, it comes through here, but it's actually got a compressor with some sidechain input from all of the other SFX that's playing. So whenever there's dialogue, whenever there's interface sounds, or most importantly, the sword slashes that your player character is making, you want to hear that very clearly, this will send a little sidechain signal over into the music channel and duck it just when the sound is playing. So this gives you a lot of other on-the-fly control with it. And of course, we can do the same thing with the ambience. If you want to like duck the ambience a bit when there's like voiceover happening and we just want to like zoom in on that sound, we can also do that. One final thing is a thing called VCAs in FMOD, which is voltage control stuff. And that lets you basically, like if you go to VCA meters here, you can control like how much main volume. So basically in the Unity game, if you want to like have options menu and it's like, adjust overall volume or just the music volume or SFX individually. Perhaps you're like streaming online, you can't actually have the music playing because copyright, but you can have the SFX. So this is how you'd hook it up in the settings. So like the Unity thing would connect to these little meters and I could just like turn all the music down. Actually, let me just give that a play, for example. Yeah, let's just turn that down a little bit. Let's play the music. And let's play some ambience. But not to them. Stuff like that. So you can have all these like volume controls inside the session itself. And this is how you do it in FMOD. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much.